Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. We have a saying in English that you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and I'm afraid, Commissioner, that this is what you were trying to do with Mercosur trade deal. It's a rotten deal. It's a deal that is widely opposed by citizens across Europe. It's a bad deal for farmers in Ireland and across the EU, and represents a massive step backwards on our climate commitments. And I want to focus specifically on the environmental aspects, because I think the agricultural has been well discussed by other speakers. But following the shameful decision to postpone implementation of the deforestation regulation, we now seem to have an agreement that lacks any protection for forests or other ecosystems. So in the Trade and Sustainable Development chapter, clause 10, the Commission has conceded to Mercosur's claims that countries should not unilaterally address environmental challenges outside their territory. So, Commissioner, how is this not an admission that the deforestation regulation will not be enforced? I'm also extremely concerned by the contents of clause 56, which stipulates that Mercosur countries shall be favourably considered for the rating of countries under the EUDR country benchmarking. So, Commissioner, is it a qualitative or is it evidence-based benchmarking not planned for the application of Mercosur? How can you say in advance that you'll favourably consider these countries if it's based on science? I don't see how this is consistent with our climate goals or the EU's supposed commitment to the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And has an impact assessment on clause 56 being undertaken with a view to our own climate targets or the coming Montreal Agreement? I also want to very briefly touch on the dispute settlement chapter, which allows Mercosur to raise complaints against any new environmental, climate and human rights measures if those have an impact on Mercosur exports to the EU and vice versa. Does the Commission not find it bizarre? We've just had the EU recognise the danger of dispute mechanisms contained in the Energy Charter Treaty, and we're now on a path to enter into a new treaty which will allow our environmental and climate measures to be challenged. So I would like to ask you, why do those challenges have to be kept confidential? Does the public in both regions not have a right to know when those laws are being challenged?
Thanks a lot. So, Saskia, you give me a signal, but your coordinator left the room.
Madame Zbaï devait intervenir, mais ça tombe bien. Enfin,
yes, Ms. Biden was going to speak, but if I can just have a second to ask you to answer my question on splitting on the Paris Agreement and the right to regulate, and pass the floor to my colleague.